Welcome to the first of the videos where we begin to explore human resource management. And this first one we actually look at an introduction. And we'll begin first of all with actually defining what human resource management means. And Griffin describes this as the set of organisational activities directed at attracting, developing and maintaining an effective workforce. And as we go through this video, we'll actually take this definition apart and look at each of the different areas. If we look at the scope of human resources, it's a function that supports the management of people within the organisation. It's the size of the workforce. How many people are needed in the whole organisation? The skill mix required. What are the roles and what skills are needed to complete the tasks required for the business? The training and development. Having identified the skills needed, what training is needed? And then what additional training is needed as processes change? New technology, health and safety, additional academic skills, training, accreditation, and CPD or continuous professional development. Management control, thinking of things like trade unions and management structures. How do management control staff? Do they need training? What type of structure does the organisation have? And the evaluating and analysing policies and procedures, particularly thinking of any changes in legislation as this arises. Generally, when you think about what's the function that managers perform, I think it could be argued that it actually would be looking after their staff. And often it's a specialist department within the organisation which can actually provide that specialist support. We've been thinking a lot about competitive advantage, so it's important to actually consider human resource management in this context. And Pettigrew, Whip and Patterson, one of the things that they're saying is that for competitive advantage, that with a good human resource management system, that more satisfied workers perform better. That organisational culture affects a company performance, and the culture of concern for employees is a predictor of increased performance. If you think that your managers, your company is concerned about you, then the chances are you're going to perform better. That job design and skill acquisition and development are critical for performance. And that human resource management practices are extremely good predictors at company success. So if we were to think about the planning, well, why is it so vital to be able to operationalise the strategic plan and the vision? How is that relevant? Well, it's relevant because to ensure that you have the adequate supply of labour when it's needed, and to consider things like turnover, working practices, the labour requirements, any deficits, surpluses, the demographics, and the skills of other needs. So why is human resource management planning useful? Well, it's a crucial part of deciding strategy and understanding resource requirements. It attempts to prevent crises, and it plans to adapt to future changes, and the organisation can shape the market, and it can develop talents from within the organisation, so you can actually look at perhaps recruiting from within when promotion and different jobs come rather than actually from outside. Human resources issues cannot always be solved quickly or easily and may take time, so this planning is so useful. So if we were to consider what actually makes a really good human resource management plan, I think it will be argued that it needs to be as detailed as expenses allow. So actually, if you have money, you can actually afford to go into this plan, it's actually better putting it into it. I think your plan needs to have a very pragmatic timescale, and pragmatic is dealing with things sensibly and realistically in a way that's based on practical rather than theoretical considerations. So not too long, but long enough. It needs to consider alternatives, and the implications of plans do need to be considered. It needs to conclude with instructions and decisions, and it needs to be easy to understand. There's no purpose in coming up with something which nobody can actually make head or tail out of. It needs to categorise the staff. It's an important part of human resource management to ensure that staff are correctly employed rather than just having the right number of people, making sure you've got the right resource. And you might need to consider the age, the length of service, occupation, the qualifications, the experience, and the potential of promotion. And finally, human resource management needs to look at the turnover and the recruitment, because understanding turnover and recruitment is crucial to planning. And turnover is a proportion of the workforce that changes in a 6-month or in a year timescale. The labour stability, it reflects the number of people within that who move within a year's experience. And arguably you can say that this reflects a better measure of experience within an organisation. And I think it's important to note that some industries do have a high turnover of staff, and perhaps things like hospitality, fast food and care workers. And in the next videos in the session we'll be exploring HRM in more detail.